This is the Level Up Lifestyle Podcast, where we dive deep into conversations that matter for today's leaders and growth seekers. In today's episode, Rebekah sits down with David Villasenor. We get to join David on his journey to becoming a top-performing agent, starting with an early and influential accomplishment.
As a freshman, they moved me up to the varsity team because I like to hit people.
To finding himself directionless and stuck.
But it was to a point where, I'm drinking a bottle of vodka a day.
To ultimately committing himself to a better life for his son.
But the biggest change agent for me is when Luke showed up. From there, I was like, okay, it's no longer about me.
All of this coming up next on the Level Up Lifestyle.
Welcome to the Level Up Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Rebekah Samuels, and today I get to sit down with a leader whose impact is felt not in just what he does, but who he is. His story is rich and honest and full of lessons we can all learn from. So I'm excited to have this conversation. So let's jump in. Welcome to the podcast, David.
Hey there, Rebekah.
We're so glad to have you here today.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about you, where you came from, where you grew up, your community.
A little bit. All right. So we'll start with a little bit. Where I grew up was in a place. Well, let's just start with grew up in a military family. So traveled around, but I was born in Tacoma, Washington, lived there for about 2 years. From there, went to a place in Michigan called the UP. It was Kinchlow Air Force Base. And It was located in the UP Upper Peninsula. So very cold, very frigid. Fell in love with the idea of Santa Claus back in that time because it actually felt like a very Christmassy type feel. And I was there up until probably about 5 years old.
Okay.
So again, very short amount of time there for about 3 years. And then we moved from there all the way down to the extreme of Biloxi, Ocean Springs, Mississippi, which is the other side of the United States in the Gulf of Mexico, and lived there from probably about pre-K up until sixth grade.
So you guys are moving, I'm trying to do the math here, every 2 to 3 years?
Sometimes it could be 4, could be 5, but for the most part, it was a quick visit. And
what was that like as a young person, if you remember? Starting over,
right? Well,
2-3 times already by the time you're 7?
As a young person, you really don't know. You just are being told, we're moving here. This is where we're going. This is what we're doing. I'm like, okay, cool. This is how it is.
Yeah.
You're young and dumb. You don't know what you're doing, really. You're just a kid and you're just following whatever mom and dad says. So,
and what branch of the military are we in as we're?
Air Force.
Air Force.
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So Air Force family. So we are in Biloxi. Yep. Total opposite. No Christmas snow for you guys.
No, it was blue crabs and saltwater fishing for Christmas.
Okay, well, that's kind of fun.
So a little bit different. But located right on the beach, really, really nice station. But Mississippi wasn't probably the long-term picture for where I was supposed to be in my life, I don't think.
Okay.
But it was definitely a fun time because, we lived in a place called Ocean Springs, and it's where I don't want to say the upper echelon of people were living. So we the schools and the people were a little bit more uppity, but it was fun. It was fun to, I wasn't on an Air Force base for once. I wasn't going to school with military kids. So
Got it.
I was going to school with regular people, and it was interesting to know that, hey, there's other people in the world besides military
There's a
kids.
real world out there. Yeah. What were the big differences? I mean, coming from living in military base, military school, and then all of a sudden there's probably freedom and differences. What was that like actually going out in the real world?
I actually enjoyed it more than the military school in some regards because you're with real people and, you get to experience things a little bit differently, but not too differently. I mean, obviously teachers are teachers, kids are kids. So, and it's at an age where none of that really matters. You just have to gel and mix and mingle. And I mean, I remember one time when I was in Catholic school as a kindergartner, I remember saying bull. And I still have a hard time saying that word. And
someone's going to come over with a ruler or something.
Worse, or wash your mouth out with soap. So I remember that as a child, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you have to still follow rules even in the Catholic school. So very rule based upbringing from the military to the schooling to a lot of things.
So how does that impact you now? I mean, does it make you understand the value of rules, or does it make you want to do the opposite? Like, how did that impact you? Always having rules to follow.
I was never one that liked to follow the rules. So when the rules were imposed, I would always try to be a defiant and try to bend the rules, find other ways around the rules. I didn't believe in rules. I don't know if that was just because I just didn't, I think I wanted to be independent. I think everybody wants to have independence in one capacity or another. So the idea of someone telling me what to do as opposed to asking me what I want to do, big difference. So, yeah.
Okay. So how long were we in with the blue crabs? Did we move again in a couple more years?
The blue crab thing lasted from, kindergarten to 6th grade. And then from 6th grade, we were told we were going to be moving to Texas. And I thought, oh, cool. So I'm thinking cowboys, horses, cowboy hats,
tumbleweeds,
exactly.
Longhorns.
I mean, as a kid, you don't know what that looks like. You just know people from Texas had that like John Wayne presence. That's what my vision was of Texas. So driving into Texas, from Mississippi, we're seeing, cows and horses and cowboys and trucks. And I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I thought it was going to be, and then we get
the promised land.
Yeah. And then we get to San Antonio, Texas. And, I'm, automatically just start getting involved with sports, more so, with, the soccer and, I remember my dad trying to oversell everybody like, yeah, my son's coming in and he was describing him to all these players on the soccer team in Mississippi. He's like, yeah, he's about 6 foot and 180. And I'm like, who's he talking about? I'm not that guy.
Looking behind you.
He was overselling me just a little bit. And I'm like, I'm not that good, Dad. I've played like 2 seasons or 3 seasons. But,
okay. So soccer was your point leading up to that, was your sport.
Soccer was the sport. Baseball was never my thing. I just didn't, and maybe that's just coaching and things that I grew up with that I was just like, no, it's not going to be my sport. You just know some things you're gifted at, some you're not. And then football showed up, and football ended up being the change agent with sports. That was the fun one.
Okay. So let's dive into that. Why was football the change agent for your life at this point? You're 7th grade?
7th grade.
If I'm doing the math. Okay.
Yep. And then
was it the coach or the sport or?
It was just the idea that you could put on a pair of pads and a helmet and go knock around people and it was okay. And you could go out and pretty much, hit somebody and knock the tar out of them and it was legal. As long as it wasn't an illegal hit or an illegal block, you could actually go out and have fun stuff with that. And I was like, man, this is what I like. I want to do this. And I was really good at it. Yeah. So that's where that went with the football.
So where you're 7th grade, what's going on in your life that you're excited to go and hit people, David? Where does that come from that you're like, hey, you're 7, you're 12, and I've got something going on in my head and my heart that I got to go run into somebody else with a helmet?
Well, it wasn't so much just running into somebody. It wasn't like, oh man, I get to put on my helmet and now I get to go knock the, bejeevers out of them. The idea was, wow, you get to put on all this equipment. You're not going to get hurt. You might, but that was never something in my mind. But who's to say where the real impact of that came from? I just knew it was a fun outlet for me. Like many people have outlets, whether it's through a musical instrument or whether it's through choir or whatever it is, to have something that they enjoy. And football was something that I enjoyed because it was, it required a lot. It required mental toughness. It required, discipline. It required effort and the right attitude and somebody that was fearless. And I felt like I was pretty fearless when it came to that. I mean, I would knock the heck out of people, and the coaches were just like, man, it's like the movie Rudy. It's like, it's just practice, right? And I said, yeah, but it's my job to hit people, and to hurt them and to knock them down and take them out. So I did it pretty well. And that led all the way into, junior varsity and then straight into varsity. And as a freshman, they moved me up to the varsity team because I like to hit people. So
and it sounds like you obviously respected the discipline that it took, respected the mental toughness that you took. Did you see that growing up? Was that because of the military family? Was there somebody in your family that you saw and respected that you wanted to have those same values? I don't know if I know many 7th graders that are talking about mental toughness and discipline at that age.
Well, I probably wasn't saying this is a mentally tough sport. I can say it now because I know what it means. But I looked at it at that point as just an avenue for me to get out and, have an outlet for maybe pain or whatever else was maybe inside. And that was something that allowed me to have that come out. And it was a great vehicle for that. I probably needed it. It was going to come out one way or the other. So it might as well come out in a sport. So
yeah. So what did we just touch on just now? I felt some emotion.
Just the idea that there was some, pent up frustration, anger that needed to have an outlet, and football allowed that outlet to be there.
Yeah, so, I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, very much.
Absolutely. So what were our dreams as a young person here, David? Were you thinking you're going to be professional football, or what were the young dreams?
I think it was typical stuff. Fireman, race car driver, baseball player, even though I didn't like it. Doctor, I was thinking dentist, anything in the medical field is what I wanted to do, something. And then, even tried my hand at being a musician. I'm like, I don't want to say I had 2 left feet and 2 left hands, but it was pretty bad. So I was like, my brain just wasn't working that direction where I knew that was probably going to be a possibility, even though I did give it a shot. And I didn't really know, theoretically, I didn't know really what I was going to do. I just knew that I'm just going to graduate school and probably join the military because that's what my family did. And fortunately, that didn't happen because back when I tried to go into the Marine Corps, they didn't allow just anybody to join the Marines, probably like they do today, because I had flat feet, thank God. Because there's no telling what my life would have looked like if I would have joined the Marines. I probably would have been a lifetime, soldier. Essentially, it was probably where my life would have been if I would have joined.
What was attracting to you to the military at this point? Because I think you shared, you kind of got the military life, traveling from base to base and growing up in a military family. But it sounds like you're grateful you didn't go in. What was attractive, but also not attractive, I guess, at the same time?
Well, the hindsight now is why it's not attractive. I mean, it wouldn't have been something that would have been probably that rewarding as what I have in front of me now. I feel like that was a divine intervention to allow that to happen and not let me go down that avenue. So it brought me to a lot of different trials about, well, what am I going to do? And then slowly but surely, I think that just led me to, let's just get through college. And then let's see where that goes. And then, I wanted to be in the medical field, but there were a lot of things that, happened through college where you're like, okay, well, that's not going to work. This isn't going to work. That might work. And then, well, this will work. And then you make up your mind what you're going to do. My goal initially in college was to become a physical therapist. I'm like, okay, this seems pretty easy. And I was like, I don't want to say I took the road less traveled, the road more traveled, so to speak. But I found something that I felt like I could do. It wasn't requiring a lot of math. Math was not my strong suit. So I said, I could do this. And then I realized, when I applied to school, my first semester of PT school.
Okay. Are we still in Texas at this point?
Yeah.
I know we spent a few years for it. Okay. Yeah, but we stayed in Texas.
If we need to go back, I'll go back.
This is good.
Kind of just speeding forward a little bit, missing a few years there.
That's okay.
And we can go back if you want.
No. So we're still in Texas. We made it into college. We're wanting to be physical therapists.
Yep. And then I go straight up the street to a place called Southwest Texas State, which was, 40 minutes from the house.
Okay.
But there were other options, the San Angelos, I didn't have that many options. It was like Texas State, San Angelo, because my SATs and ACTs were not the best. Again, I was not the best test taker. Again, because I was never a test taker. Again, I always thought different about tests. I was like, I don't like these answers. And it's just the way I think. I always think, and I still think like that. Anytime I read something and it's a multiple choice, I'm like, it could be any of these answers, depending on how you want to look at it. So fast forward to college, and then where were we going with that? I forgot.
I think you were talking about just your early dreams, where you thought you were going.
Yep. So going to the physical therapy program, I realized that they get about 500 applicants every semester. They accept 50 into the school. And I mean, this was back in 1990, so it's some time ago. So those numbers have probably changed.
But highly competitive regardless.
Yeah. And then the lowest GPA was like a 3.8, 3.9. I'm like, it's not going to be me. I'm a 2.25 GPA because that's all I needed to graduate. So that's the way I looked at it. I was just going to do what I needed to do to get out of school because my parents gave me an ultimatum. They said, if you get out 3.5 years, you don't have to pay for school. So I said, I'll do it 3.5 years. And I did. And like all my friends that knew me in college were like, how did you do that? I'm like, well, I made a decision and I did it. Where most of them were there for 5, 6, 7 years. I did it in 2.5 years or, 3.5 years. Wow. And they're like, well, you were the guy that went out almost every night. I'm like, I did, but I still had a job to do.
Oh.
So
when you made a decision, you made it happen.
Yeah.
And had you always been that way, or did you see the fruit of that from somebody in your family or your life? Or what made you that way, that when you go in, you're all in?
I don't know if there was any specific defining moment where I said that. I just knew that when I made up my mind with anything that I was going to do it. I remember probably in 6th grade or 5th or 6th grade, there was this thing called an Atari. I don't know what they're called today. I have no idea what they're called today, but whatever the kids play with video games.
Yeah.
And somebody said, you can beat the computer. And I'm like, how? And like, well, if you play Space Invaders long enough and you get to 100,000, the machine doesn't know what to do anymore. But nobody can do it. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. So I remember going home that night and staying up till probably 3 or 4 in the morning. I'd get to 95, 96,000, 97,000. Wow. And I'd have to start all over again and do another two hours of this, going through the whole system again. And then finally I got to 100,000. The machine just kind of broke and stopped. And I was like, yes, I did it. But it was just the idea of somebody telling me, if you do it, it's impossible. Nobody's been able to do it. There's been like one other kid but I'm like, I want to do it. And I just thought it was interesting to know, like, can it really happen? Is it true? So I think, that along with, making a decision on what you want. I mean, I was very definite about if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And that's pretty much been my MO for everything that I've ever done. There's not too much that will take me away from that. And yeah, I don't know if there's something specific. There probably is. I just maybe haven't discovered what that is yet.
But you've seen it thread into all the phases of your life. So how do we get from physical therapy to now insurance?
So
that's got to be a crazy series of events, or unlikely.
So I knew at that point physical therapy wasn't going to be my thing. And then I looked at, my options, and there was business administration, but that required too much math. There was healthcare administration, which didn't require that much math. Okay. So I said, healthcare administration, that's what I'm going to do. And then, so I was able to get my degree in healthcare administration and pursued a job with the state of Texas initially with the Texas Department of Health and the immunization division. And, I was making $2,000 a month, living large. Not really.
But I'm sure for the first time.
Yeah. You had your actual, I guess, cubicle and desk, and you thought you were pretty important because you had your name on a plaque, and you're like, yeah, my name's David Villasenor. I'm an administrative tech too. So I was pretty important. Yeah. But then I was realizing, I was like, wait a second, I get paid once a month. I'm not able to do what I want to do. So I'm going to have to do something else. So I started working another job. Then I worked another job.
All at the same time.
Oh yeah. So I'm working 3 jobs. I mean, again, because I wanted to have certain things and do certain things. So
highly financially motivated.
Yep.
Wanted a certain lifestyle.
Yeah, there was always that burning desire for more. And then I just realized if I wanted to be an administrator, it's going to take forever. Most of the ones that I knew had PhDs, and I'm like, I'm not doing any more school, so that's going to be out. And then I'm not going to sit around in a hospital for 30 years and wait for the guy to die, so I can be the administrator and make $200,000 to $300,000. And it wasn't like I needed $200,000 to $300,000. I just wanted an opportunity to make it, at least 6 figures. I wanted something. And then that's when I started going on all these interviews, and there were a bunch of selling jobs. There always has been, from water purifiers to you name it. I mean, whatever can be sold was presented to me. And then, fortunately, I was looking through the newspaper. They used to have these things called the one ads back in newspapers.
Sure.
You'd look at, and there was this little four sentence paragraph in a newspaper. It said sports minded, goal oriented, management opportunity, 2 to 5K potential. And I'm thinking, sports minded. That's what I thought. I didn't really know what goal oriented meant really yet.
Sure.
And then management opportunity wasn't really on my table. But then I saw 2 to 5K potential. I'm like, woo, that's a lot of money for a month. So I went on an interview for about 30 minutes with a guy named Mike Moorhead, and he told me, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And he said, would you be interested in doing a field demo with one of our agents? And I said, sure. So I went with this lady named Betty Barton, went out to the field with her for about, an hour or 2. And, she was an interesting lady, and showed me a few demos, and she showed me a sale, and we went and had lunch, and I asked her, how much did you make on that sale? And she told me, and I was like, you just, and I'm thinking in my mind, you just read upside down for 15 minutes and you got $500. I'm like, I can do that all day.
That's right.
And I can probably do it better than you. So
that's right.
So I said, well, thank you for your time. And I'll look into this. And then Mike had called me back that night and said, hey, what do you think? And I said, I like it. I'd love to give it a shot. And he said, well,
so
great.
What, if I can interrupt you, it sounds like your parents were really investing in your education, right? You got the steady job. Is family supportive during this time as you're ready to throw that all out the window? Or did that matter to you at that point?
I mean, it did, but it didn't. I mean, again, you're a 24-year-old man. So yeah, there's certain elements there where you still respect your parents, your mom, and dad with what they think is right. And I'm like, and they said, we don't think it's a good idea. You're going to leave your security, which they're used to because that's how they were raised, to have that security. And I said, well, I'm going to do it. So, you can tell me all this stuff, and I'm on a plane. It was already booked. I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. Had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to do it. And, the system was taught, and I followed the system, and I did really well with Combine for years, built teams, trained teams. But the systems that were there with Combine were very instrumental to my success, not only there, but with life in general. They just had really great systems with the idea of how you're going to build, how you're going to manage, how you're going to train. And there was always a system in place.
So before there was a system, because it sounds like even though you don't like rules, you like systems if they work.
Systems are fine.
Systems are fine. So before you had the system, what gave you confidence to make that decision and jump on a plane, doing something you'd never done before with no guarantee that you would be successful?
Was there confidence?
What gave you confidence? Yeah, you had some sense it was all going to work out.
Well, like I said, I was on that field demo. I saw her do it, and I said, if she can do it, she's going to a house, making a call, talking to people. And I'm thinking, I didn't think about me being a shy person, me not being that talkative. I just thought, like, if she can do it, I can do it. And I'll do it. And I'm going to do it. And the system was there, and I went to sales school for 2 weeks, and I had learned the system. And I went out, and I remember my very first call I made. I was shaking in my boots. I was at a courthouse in New Braunfels, Texas. And this banker, this lady, older lady, she said, it's okay. And she put her hand in my hand and she said, it's okay.
She could feel.
Yeah, she could feel my nervousness and my tension probably with everything I was doing. And she said, don't worry, I'll buy it. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm like,
wow.
Perfect. So, it's those little moments that happened pretty much throughout when I was with Combined. I mean, I can tell you stories, not just with Combined, but with Family Heritage as well, where, I would walk into a business and, the lady would say, yeah, how much is it? And I'd say $98 a month. She's like, yeah, go ahead and sign everybody up. I'm like, really? I'd rather give them the demo. It's like, nah, and then the husband would come out dusty and he'd say, I'd just listen to her if I were you. And I'm like, okay. And they're clients to this day. I mean,
wow.
So,
okay.
It was an effective thing. And those moments happen throughout. I do remember when I did first come back from Chicago, I presented the life policy to my mom that I was selling.
Wow.
And she goes, I wouldn't buy that. And I'm thinking, and it wasn't like, hey, she just said I wouldn't buy it. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks. I'm like, doggone it. But,
Does that inspire you to want to do even better?
I don't know if it really inspired me. I don't know if it really discouraged me. I mean, I felt like I had a pretty much of a leather skin when it came to anything that, mom or dad would say to me. I mean, I was used to developing that leather skin because whether it was good or bad, and sometimes it wasn't the most positive reinforcement, but at the same time, you learn to adapt to that and then improvise and overcome it and just continue to press forward. And there were times, just like when you're starting anything new and you're completely straight commission, like I was, to say, is this really what I want to be doing? But I kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And I mean, I was working 5, 6, 7 days a week. I mean, I remember when it was snowing and, the only way I could make money is I had to go out and sell. And I'm like, and I should have even been driving. And back then I had a Dodge Stealth RT twin turbo, black red leather interior, and went out in the middle of nowhere. And this person I set this appointment with said, why did you come out here? I'm like, well, you said we had an appointment scheduled. Yeah, but the weather. I'm like, yeah, but it's important that I'm out here. And of course they bought, and I just remember driving home, slipping all over the road. And I'm like, at least I made $500, but it was those little critical moments that kind of just developed and evolved over a course of a career with Combined, which obviously, moved into Family Heritage and how well I've done here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What was that process like? I mean, obviously going from selling a certain product to now Family Heritage, was there an impetus or an event? What made you decide to come to family? Yeah.
So things went, people were leaving with Combined. And, my manager was still there, but, a couple of my regional managers and a couple of my close colleague friends were leaving. And I'm thinking, well, if they're leaving, and it wasn't about them just leaving, but, I wasn't really in direct contact with my regional manager. It was just, I knew he was there and, I had expense accounts. I had, I could, they would always call me in to train people and take them to dinner. And, I was always thinking I was the big shot. So I would go spend $500-$600. And then I'd get a call from Mike Morey. It's like, why'd you spend so much money? I'm like, well, you said take them out and show them a good time, so I did it. And, so that was one of the perks that kept me there for an extended amount of time when I was probably ready to move out of there, probably 6 months prior to that. But fortunately, when I was with them, I met Barry out in Caldwell, Texas. And I just remember him, coming up to me. And again, I was in my Dodge Stealth and he came up to me and I thought he was some kind of insurance cop or like, because like who comes out of nowhere and just says, hey, what are you doing out here? And, and I think he had dark glasses on anyway, so it made him even look more suspicious. And then I said, I'm out here, talking to people about supplemental insurance and disability and life insurance. He goes, well, man, you should come think about maybe coming over to see our group, man. We sell cancer insurance. I'm like thinking, cancer insurance? What's that? And, and I didn't really even think anything about it. I said, yeah, sure. Give me your card. I'll look into it. And at that point, I didn't really even think twice about it because I'm like, I'm still doing really well with Combine. And then fast forward 3 more months, and then I decided to leave. I was going to get out of the insurance business completely.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was just like, you know what? If it's going to be like this, then I don't know if it's going to be for me. And I met a lot of cool people with Combine, and I saw a lot of stuff with Combine, and did a lot of fun stuff with Combine, and did a lot of the, management development, as we call them, 101s here, all the way up to the 401. So I was doing that stuff with them. And then I decided to leave and get out. And then, during that, about a dark period of about 90 days, about 3 months, there was, not knowing what you're doing, you kind of fall into a little bit of a hole. I say black hole in the regards of you're just in this vacuum of space and you don't really know what you're going to do. There's other options available to you. Selling is probably where I needed to be because found out I was pretty good at it. Didn't know I was going to be good at it, but I ended up being good at it. And said, I'll stay in this arena. Advertising was definitely part of that in my mind because I was like, I'm creative. I can come up with ideas, but I didn't know enough about the industry to move in that direction. But that was something I always thought I wanted to do. And then, I went on a bunch of interviews with, the John Hancocks, the MetLifes, and they were offering me agencies. You can run an agency. We're going to give you this. We're going to give you this, this, and this. And I'm thinking, man, what a great deal. But then a lot of them, were telling me certain things that weren't true. I found out later, like, we're going to give you $1,000 draw because that's what you're used to making with your other company. And, they didn't call it a draw. They just said, we're going to give you $1,000 a month. And to find out it was a draw. And then I'm thinking, you know what? Another one.
Disappointment.
Beating around the bush.
Disillusionment. And you said you're in a black hole, a dark hole. I think we've probably all been through something that was dark. What do you mean when you say dark hole?
Just lost with regards of what are you actually going to do with your life? You're 25. Not that it was that big of a life-changing environment. You're still 25. You're a kid, so to speak. But it was to a point where it's like, I'm drinking a bottle of vodka a day. I'm sitting in a, apartment with my girlfriend at the time. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I felt, lost, betrayed, disheartened. I felt like I failed at something I wanted to do. So that sucked. And then, I decided I was going to go look through one of my, brochures or something. And I found Barry's card and I called him up and then he called me back the next day and we met at the Renaissance in Austin. And at that point, he presented the product of what we do, which is the supplemental refundable cancer policy. And I said, you get all your money back? And I said, all right, man, I'll do it. And, Barry just rubbed me the right way because the fact that he went straight to his presentation and gave me his demo word for word. And I'm thinking, this guy's not blowing smoke. He's just telling me what he does. So at that point, I made a decision. I'll do what you're doing. And he goes, okay, well, here's the thing. We got to do this, this, and this. And I said, I'm not doing sales school. I'll follow you for a couple, and he said, well, I got to train you a little bit. And I'm like, cool, I'll follow you for a day. And I followed him for about half a day.
There you go. You're like, I got this.
Yeah. And then I saw what he was doing. I was like, all right, I know exactly what I need to do. And he was like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. And then that year I won the Fast Start Award. And he goes, hey, you're not going to believe it, but you won the cruise incentive. And I'm like, cool, I won the cruise incentive. I didn't know what that meant either, and from there, it progressed in a really good way because, he just said, always be in the top 20, try to be consistent, always, do the right thing. And I'm like, okay, simple enough. And we had daily meetings of our group, which was very small back then. It was about a group of 4, but we were the premier group at that time because, we were producing at, and there weren't that many groups back in 98. There were, but they weren't, kind of like our group, going door to door and store to store, floor to floor, ranch to ranch, all that kind of stuff. And we were that group.
Wow. So before you got on this upward trajectory, you shared you were alone in a room, drinking every single day. What are you telling yourself? to get out of that? What's going through your mind? What are you telling yourself? I think about our audience, some of them might be in a dark pit or hole or room right now as they're listening. Like, what were you telling yourself, David, to get out there and even go to those interviews?
Yeah.
To even talk to somebody like Barry?
Well, obviously I knew that wasn't what I wanted to be doing. It's just what my default was, to try to numb the pain, if you will, of, I guess if you want to call it failure, of not succeeding with the other company. So that's what I did to deal with that. So I knew it wasn't the right thing to be doing, but I also knew it was a temporary thing. It wasn't going to be who I was going to be. It was just something that was the only thing I knew to do at that particular moment. Unfortunately, I didn't have other outlets to do it. I had numerous outlets to do other things, but in my mind, that was the only thing I knew how to do. Do you go back and tell your parents, "Oh, I messed up. You guys were right"? No, you don't want to do that one either. Then, in my mind, I'll look worse than I already do because I didn't make it there. So, the black hole was there. And I just worked myself through it. I mean, it was just a time, patience, thought process. And I knew it was, I knew it was going to be temporary. Didn't know how long. Fortunately, I was blessed enough. It was only, about 3 months.
Wow.
But it gave me the clarity, so to speak, to know that I need to do something. And I was slowly getting there. I just didn't know what I was going to do. It's just the fact that I was going on interviews and everything was falling through on the interviews. It wasn't like I wasn't not being offered jobs. Here's your job. Here's your agency. We're ready to go. We're ready to hire you. You're ready to go. We're going to have you take your Series 6. We want you to do this. We want you to do that. So all these things were available to me. It's just I didn't believe them. They just wanted a soldier. They didn't want a person. They wanted someone that's going to make them a lot of money, which is fine. I get it. I mean, if I was in their same role, I guess I'd be doing the same thing. However, Barry he didn't rub me that way. So that's why I said yes to Barry, and the rest is history. Yeah.
Is there and thank you for sitting in that for a second. Is there anything that you learned during that kind of dark 90 days that you now see as pivotal, you still apply today in your life or your business?
I feel like it's at some degree, it's still a default if I end up having whether it's a bad situation, whether it's I can't say when I did get divorced back in 2020, if that was a bad thing. Actually, my health increased, everything got so much better. I became more fit, more active. That was almost a weight that was lifted off of me for a long period of time. I think the biggest change agent for me, and I know I'm going all over the place, but that's just the way I work. But the biggest change agent for me is when Luke showed up, and that was in 2011. And at that point, then my life changed in a way that, as a mother, So that was the big one. And then from there, I was like, okay, it's no longer about me.
So what does it mean now to get out of those dark places because somebody's watching? What does it mean to keep going and know that it's temporary now? You have little eyes on you.
Well, that since he's arrived, there really hasn't been a dark place.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, there really isn't a dark place because there's, you don't have time to be selfish anymore. You can't have your pity parties, because you have somebody else. So, yeah. If
you don't do it for yourself, you get to do it for them. That's great.
Yeah. Emotional stuff, apparently. I'm getting all worked up over here. Good grief.
They're worth it, right?
Yeah.
They're worth it if we want to do it better for the next generation. Okay, so we met Barry. Yep. We went on a total upward trajectory professionally. Yep. Somewhere along the way, we got married and had a sweet, sweet little baby. All things are riding high. So now we're in 2011.
2011.
Okay, and we're still at family. Still going door to door, store to store, ranch to ranch. What kept you there? I mean, we went from 1998 all the way to 2011 with your son and your marriage. What kept you at Family Heritage?
So 98 to 2008 was fun with Family Heritage. It was I think it was 98 to 2008. really fruitful period with Family Heritage. And then I had broken up with my second girlfriend from 2008. And then there was this little period of about 2 years. And it wasn't a bad period, but it was the period of the most renewal, most growth I had ever experienced, because then I really started working on myself, like changing so many little things, like, reading a book a month, writing every day, journaling every day, reading or listening to Stephen Covey's The 8 Successes of Highly Successful People every day in my car. I mean, driving time was actually learning time. So
that's great. Yeah. Driving time is learning time.
Right. And it was all about growth, renewal, get stronger, get better. And then, from there, it just, kind of transitioned into, obviously I was on a plane. And I remember, if there's people that believe in God, I believe in God and the Holy Spirit and Jesus. So,
absolutely, yeah.
That voice came inside and said, yeah, you're going to meet somebody that will be 5'8", 5'9", dark hair, green eyes. You'll name your son Luke. I said, okay, whatever you say. And next thing you know, she shows up, he shows up. I'm like, all right, just like you said, all right, perfect. Yeah.
Wow.
So, so it was going through that period of time. And could I have gone through a different direction and gone through the typical pity party that I had prior, and maybe drank myself during that time? Sure, but it was a different time. I had a lot of good mentors in my life at that time. Howard Lewis is a big part of that, because he brought me in like a son, and I was just like, okay, I think a lot of people that were there with him in the beginning, like, the Rudys and Joe Vaverkas and Tom Hofers and all these other guys that were my heroes when I started, were like, why does Howard love Tui or David so much, or why is he always with them? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm not going to complain, because I'm like, man, this guy's, and he just made me believe a lot more positive about myself. So I wasn't allowed to probably mentally go back to that spot, because there was somebody that, believed in David. So, yeah. And then that helped create this, who I am today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Does that shape how you parent? Having somebody speak into you like that and having a role model like that? Because if I remember correctly, it sounded like growing up, you probably had the opposite experience, developing a leather skin, I think you shared, when your mother or father spoke, and then you meet somebody like Howard, where it's like, honey, right? He's speaking life into you. How does that impact you today?
I mean, it was like I said, it was the biggest change agent at that particular point. Like, that fruitful period of time for me doesn't happen without Howard Lewis there. Not that he was pushing, hey, you need to start working on yourself. It was just, that's what it felt like I should be doing, because there was such a positive force that was Howard Lewis that was in my life at that point. And he was always bringing me to this and tell me about this. And he's like, David, do you know how much leadership you have in you? Like, right here. I mean, you've got more leadership than most leaders we have in this company, but you just don't know it. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, but he saw it.
Yeah.
And it takes, somebody like that to, help somebody like me that probably didn't see that or didn't have that kind of confidence growing up. Yeah.
Wow. So how have you been able to rewrite that story? So coming from where you came from, growing up the way you grew up, you shared, now having Howard, how do you pay that forward?
I think it's being paid forward every day that I am still working at a high level. The idea of trying to pay that forward is trying to mold Luke or help Luke not experience anything that I experienced. The knowledge that I learned during that period from 2008 up until about 2011 has been instrumental in everything that I do. I mean, from winners never quit, quitters never win, two kinds of these people. I mean, you go back to studying all the Stoics. If somebody gives me one word, I'll remember their quote, to the T.
Wow.
Just because it was such a great period of growth. But I needed that. In other words, Luke wouldn't have happened without that period of growth. Marriage wouldn't have happened without that period of growth. So, I think everything in life happens for a reason. That was necessary to get me to where I am today. And, So I thank Howard for that. I thank God for that. I think, my mom, I know she was an advocate with praying and helping. So yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah. So you talk about your faith. How has faith influenced your leadership style and how you go to work today?
Well, I pray every day. Ask for guidance, courage, wisdom, and integrity. Ask for guidance to go out and find those people that really need my help.
Okay.
Ask for the courage to make sure I get on the phone or get out of the car and talk to as many people as I possibly can. Ask for wisdom to help people understand how important these products are for them and their families. Ask for the integrity to make sure I go out and do everything the right way. And then, I'll say individual prayers for specific people, and just continue to just give all the glory to God when it comes to everything that I do, knowing that it's not me, it's Him. I'm just a vessel, and I'm just following His script for my life, which is a good place to be in.
Yeah, His, not ours, right? What are some of your, you've been around a long time, right? Our listeners might not know. You've been here, 19 years now?
1998 to 2000 to 20.
We're doing the math.
That's 27, 26, 27, 28.
So you've gotten to impact and improve the lives of a lot of people.
Yep.
Right? Going into the homes, the ranches, the businesses. Do you remember some of your first claims for your first clients?
I remember a lot of them. And one of them I remember very early on. I remember it was in Eagle Pass, Texas.
Okay.
And it was this border patrol guy named Hector Schmerber.
Wow.
And his dad had gotten sick with cancer. And they're like, hey, what do we need to do? And I was just so excited. I got a claim. So I'm like, I'll be down there, even though it's 3 hours away from me. I'll be down first thing Monday morning at 9 a.m. I'm thinking, because I was an early riser anyway, but I got there at 9 a.m. and they're like, oh my God, you're here? And I'm like, yeah, as I said I was going to be here. And we filled out the paperwork, got them paid real quick. And, needless to say that, they've moved on, but the boys and their families and their kiddos all have policies with me.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, the sons are like, we still remember that time you drove down on that Monday morning and showed up at my dad's house with my mom and filled out all the paperwork and got everything ready for us and got us paid like in a week. I'm really thinking, wow, cool. And it's like those little events were so, it makes what we do or makes what I do as just a general agent in this company feel really good. Most of us want to chase the fame and the fortune, relationships. I try to stick more to the tendency of the service-minded part of the heart and know that I'm transforming people's lives. It may not be at the highest level of what people define that as, but I know I am. And I hear it in their voices. I hear it when I talk to them because I'm a great listener. I ask really good questions. And, if you're dealing with somebody that's dealing with cancer and they're sitting there, crying to you on the phone, telling you, hey, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for making me feel better. I'm like, thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to do it. So it's cool. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
It is, right? Because that's probably more of why you've stayed, right? Like you said, you might have been attracted to the competitive nature, right? Filling that football player hole of getting to go out there and win. But it sounds like the reason why you're still here 25 plus years later is because you get to help people every day.
Yeah. It's rewarding. I don't know if you want to call it sad because they're so strong, to do what they do. So it almost makes you feel a little bit better too. Like, they're actually dealing with real problems. I got a kid that's acting up in school. I mean, they're there fighting for their lives, so it's just cool in that regard. So
how do you stay balanced, and grounded in the midst of helping people through their worst moments? I mean, those phone calls you're referencing, I mean, that's not just the hardest part of your day. That's the hardest part of what will be many days for them. How do you stay grounded? How do you stay balanced in the midst of all those hard stories?
I say it's fairly seamless at this point because I've fielded so many of those calls. I feel like, when people are calling me and they're telling me that they're in the hospital, they're going to be there for the next 6 months. I said, listen, we can't do anything for you right now. And I just want you to know the main thing for you to do is get out of there. Once you get out of there, then we can fix everything. Okay. We can't do anything right now. And the last thing you need to be worrying about is this. Right now, you just need to get out of the hospital. Once we get you out of there, then I'll fix everything for you on this end. Or if I'm talking to the spouse, I was like, Oscar's dealing with this and he's fixing to go through, his third surgery. And I said, listen, Mercedes, just don't worry about this right now. This is the last thing. Right now, you need to be there with him and take care of him. And then I'll take care of everything else. And, and she's like, wow, thanks. And it's just the idea of just comforting somebody in a really bad situation because you don't really realize what that looks like until you go through it. And, just to be a really active listener in a moment like that and to have heartfelt sympathy for those people. I say for people, going through a really bad time in their lives that's completely changed their lives. And then you get the call the next week saying, well, Richard didn't make it. And then you're like, ugh, so, those are tough moments to deal with. But, you just have to work your way through it, and I just, like I said, with prayer, I pray for those people every day. So, and that's all you really can do. So.
And I know that you are an angel to each and every single one of them and what you do. So last couple of questions for you, David. How do you hope people remember you most?
I just service-minded. He was a, using words like disciplined, dedicated, dynamic, diversified, all that stuff. That sounds good, but just, a heart of gold, somebody that actually cared, when nobody else probably did. So yeah, that.
And I know you will. Okay. So thinking back over your story, which you've been so gracious to share with us today, thinking about that young man who's hopping around all of North America from the snows of Washington to the shores of Biloxi, making his way to Texas, sitting here where you are now, knowing what that young man is going to go through. What advice would you give yourself?
I felt like I probably gave myself that advice even then, but it's get ready because it's not going to be easy, but it will be rewarding. So, I don't know if there's anything I would have done different. Honestly, if I would have taken the 90 days of drinking a bottle of vodka every day, would that have made any bigger difference than where my trajectory of my life would have gone? Maybe not. Maybe I needed it. Maybe I needed some kick in the pants to say, hey, this isn't how you're going to live your life. And I realized during that period, that's not how I'm going to do it. I'll do it some other way. I'm not going to do it like this. So, you take all the bad times that you go through during life, and I think those are necessary parts of your life in order to get to the part of where you're at in your life. Mediocrity is easy. Being a top producer or somebody that thinks differently is easy as well. It's just a decision that you're going to make about who you want to be as a person. I don't know if my childhood, if it was any different. Am I still sitting here today where, I had a silver spoon in my mouth? I'm probably not sitting here. I talked to, Barry recently about something that happened to him. He said, man, if I didn't grow up, if my family didn't get divorced, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. But because of that terrible situation that created him who he was, and I know most people that I do know that are highly successful come from pretty bad situations. And it's because of those bad situations that we are created and molded and formed and brought to where we're supposed to be in our lives. And as long as you're built upon principles and you live a God-based life, good things are going to happen. And that's kind of been my, MO for like the last 54 years. Just been blessed. And I'll hopefully continue to be blessed.
And I know you will.
Yeah.
But thank you for your story. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
It's honest, and there's so many lessons that we can all learn from. So I just thank you so much, David.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Great time.
Yep. Well, we'll see you again on the next episode of the Level Up Lifestyle Podcast.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this episode has inspired you on your path to success. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. See you soon on the Level Up Lifestyle Podcast.